better normalization about the good topic. So in status quo, we already know that Too Phat is one of the few musicians in Malaysia who actually dare to talk about all these controversial topics. Let me the reason with this is that because the newer artists don't dare to talk about these topics because they're scared they will not get a lot of fans from a very conservative society, right? That means the Carter records that Joe runs also cannot employ this kind of artists, find it difficult to employ this kind of artists because they won't be able to garner the kind of fan base that they want, so that Carter can actually can benefit from earning money, right? That means this is why we tell you that Too Phat can play a unique role because they already have a good reputation in the Malaysian fan base. That means it will be easier for people to actually listen to that because. So the result of this is that the hype out the discussion about all these controversial issues is very, and that is why it is important. Because at the point of which where you can actually have a discussion about all these controversial issues, that means you try to dismantle the idea that all these topics are all taboo. You try to dismantle the idea that these are topics that you cannot talk about in society. That means, so another reason why that Too Phat has to come back because now we already know that in the present government, we already know that Ayah is one of the activists that we have who actively talks about the LGBT community and or this kind of controversial issues. Right? That means with Too Phat returning, it means now you just actually couple the effect of Ayah talking can help garner more people to actually discuss these topics, discuss about these issues. That means now this coupling effect that sit down. So the coupling effect that you actually have by the discussion will get more attention and garner more discussion from the people. That means Too Phat's fan base. So Too Phat's fan base now that consists of people from the 90s and people who are mostly millennials now will listen and understand better the context of this music and messages that's coming from him. That means all these people. That means this content of his music, such as LGBT community. That means now the chances are that people will change their perception about LGBT community. That means more likely that people will start thinking that, you know what, they're human beings too, and we should be able to respect them. So on the comparative, this is why we tell you that discussion that Too Phat will actually bring by garnering a lot of attention is important because we want to be able to benefit from the discussion that we can actually have. Because only when there's discussion, we actually start making people engage and think about all these controversial issues and how actually that we should be able to address them and not actually shy away from them. All the girls like to.
Beat us up.
Ladies and gentlemen, aku tanya apa khabar? So basically, this debate has to take into account on why there is a difference between the split of Too Phat and whether or not those irreconcilable differences that happened with their last album can be resolved when it comes to this. Because notice that Malik's role is extremely crucial if they really want to defend advocacy. Notice that opposition stance is pretty clear. We agree with advocacy of taboo topics. We are thinking that this debate is not about whether should we forward those thoughts, but rather which side presents to you a more compelling way of forwarding those thoughts, and whether or not Malik's rejoining of Too Phat will be able to sabotage that effort. To the extent, there are three arguments in my speech. Firstly, let's do the job that government didn't do. What's the reason behind the disbandment and what is the differences that was established previously? Secondly, why Malik rejoining Too Phat will sabotage any form of efforts? And thirdly, why Cartel Records on its own now already has the strength to effectively carry on that form of advocacy. But before that, a thematic rebuttal towards them. So one thing that they say is that, we need to normalize taboo topics and we need to couple it with the fact that post-G40, we already have a very conducive environment for discussion. Non-contentious. We agree with that as well. So we think the debate now should be catered towards who can better reach the grassroots and who can necessarily better bring about the change from the urban Malays. So to that we say that notice government conveniently said that, right now, Cartel cannot do. After Malik came back, Cartel can do. But Cartel is owned by Joe Flizzow, who is actively in the business, who recently won Anugerah Juara Music in Malaysia, who already necessarily have all the social capital that's necessarily needed or can guarantee at least that he's able to reach out to the people without taking too much business failures. Heck, we will even go on to suggest that even if he failed, because they take on this controversial act of actually promoting taboo topics, he will still do it because he's a businessman like Ben who has many other chains out there. He runs like a barber shop in SS15. He runs like a few chains of restaurants. So he will not be scared of pushing forward the boundaries even without the intervention of Malik. But also we think that the more reason why he will do it is that he effectively monopolized the hip hop scene in Malaysia. So necessarily they'll be able to push forward whatever narrative that they want to set and set the tone for all those musicians out there. So we agree with government that they can still do that without Malik coming back to form Too Phat. But secondly, if it's true that the millennials are going to be your target market, they already are. So necessarily these are not the people that you will want, for example, to be able to target in order to change. So we think, again, that's non-contentious. But they say, oh, now they won't release it because after all, it's taboo. The last thing I want to say is that the motivation as a owner of the record label is still the same. So if you're telling me that right now he thinks it's too controversial, then you can't tell me just because of one individual joining with no guarantee of success whatsoever. Because notice, Malik hasn't been doing anything for his singing career at all. He basically left Too Phat and then like disappeared and became a reclusive hermit. So we really don't know what his motivations are or whether or not he can even step back into the music scene. So we have no way of actually predicting how successful that will be. Couple that with the fact that Joe Flizzow is the businessman, so on their side they cannot take that characterization of saying that why we need that calculus in order to release. We are here to tell you that he will release regardless. The question is whether or not should we do it with Malik. Into my arguments. So there'll be two things that we prove that will win this debate. Number one, why advocacy will be better on our side, but secondly, why Malik will actively harm the cause. Moving into arguments. Firstly, what's the reason behind the disbandment? If we actually follow that group, the last album that they actually released was Rebirth Reality. So basically, it's a 2-disc album that is similar to what Andre 3000 Outkast tried to do. Okay, so like Andre 3000 had 1 disc, the other person had 1 disc. So in a way, it explores the differences within the artistic expressions, but at the same time, it's still coherent enough for it to win like necessarily the Grammy Award for the best collaboration. But contrast that with the last album coming from Too Phat. It was extremely jarring in the differences that was presented by both. Whilst, for example, Reality was covered by Joe Flizzow talking about necessarily tackling local issues, Malik decided to take his part of the album, instead talk about spirituality and why he's a reborn again Muslim. So we think there is already necessarily a shift in the way of what necessarily Malik wanted when he joined Too Phat and what necessarily happened afterwards when it's the last album. In fact, the song Apa Khabar was written by Joe Flizzow as a way of saying that, guys, we really know that you like Too Phat, but it's over, guys. Like, there's really no longer any way to cling on to sentiments of hoping that we'll come back one day. Because Joe Flizzow, as a successful businessman himself, recognized that there are already differences that cannot be reconciled. Why? Number one, there are different personal motivations. Notice that info site clearly says that Malik is nowhere to be seen. We don't even know which SS he lives in. Meaning to say that he really doesn't want to pursue a career in music because he wants to focus on his own personal life and also his newfound spirituality. Everything, the fact that coupling this up with the fact that he thinks that he's a bit too old, like, you know, old people when they go to clubs, they feel that, oh, I cannot relate to music, and therefore, you know, they don't really want to like do a lot of things and they take like more conservative opinions. Means that less likely he's able to push forward these boundaries and what you hope. Second argument, why is it that Malik will openly, I don't know whether he openly or not, but he'll definitely sabotage the effort. 3 reasons. Number one, there's an internal conflict within himself for necessarily what he can do in his current capacity. Notice this was not the Malik when he left Too Phat. This is the Malik right now, 10 years later, without any form of like involvement in the music scene. We really don't know how he will react to this new music scene. Secondly, there's irreconcilability of his own personal beliefs and also the message that's preaching out. If it is true that he wants to preach, for example, LGBT advocacy, firstly, he'll go through the personal conflict I told you about earlier, but secondly, fans will also notice that, hey, my bro out there sings about LGBT advocacy, but he's a strong Muslim, similar to what we see with the education minister right now. But third, holy shit, did you hear what Prime Minister said? There's an obligation for Malik in order to change the system. This is an extreme undue pressure that will definitely mean that he will crack under those pressures. We don't think he can live up to that. Before I move on, go.
So your case explain why Joe shouldn't do it. What's your alternative?
Yes. Third argument, why cartel is sufficient in forwarding the cause. We think that cartel, effectively, as I preluded to earlier, has a monopoly of the hip-hop and R&B scene in Malaysia. They are a strong label with strong acts which are individually successful. We have Sona One, we have Ultimate, you have heard the song Havoc, all 3 of them are in it. It's a damn good song. Meaning to say that these individuals themselves already have the capacity to push forward whatever messages that Joe wants. In fact, they are so close-knitted to Joe that they frequently do cross-collaborations between themselves, but also with up-and-coming artists if that's what you want us to push for. But also the reason why we think that they are sufficient is because there's grassroots relatability. Understanding that the change that we need for these taboo topics have to come from a bottom-up approach, meaning to say that they must sufficiently target urban Malays that we have right now in order for them to push towards the suburban Malays and ultimately the conservative Malays. So we think that all these form of changes can already be established by them because these are the people who grew up knowing Sona One, knowing Joe Flizzow now. If you bring back, for example, Malik, he will only be able to cater to a very niche group of people who listen to them like old fucks like us in the 90s and the early 2000s. So these are necessarily not the people that we think if you want outrage, we can get it on our side too. But lastly, the popularity of Monopoly means that he effectively has control over the narrative. Panel, we think that you need to recognize that this debate is not about whether or not Joe Flizzow should do it, it's whether or not Joe Flizzow should bring Malik back to do it. We think he should just, live his happy life, very proud to oppose.
My thanks to the Leader of Opposition. We now move to Deputy Prime Minister.
Only one, The reason why none of us here knows what Too Phat is because we only know the name of Joe Flizzow, and that's the inherent problem. Their side was to contend that Malik is a person who has internal conflicts and therefore cannot do everything else to then say this shit is all correct. However, I would like to pose to you that the reason why we feel like Malik has an obligation to come back to the music scene and start making music, even if Too Phat had their own differences, because first, Malik has a very unique stance as a person who was older to then tap into the older 90s crowd and to catch that crowd to talk about these topics. Relatability for LGBT topics, for spirituality and Islam, for example, are very, very relevant, right? Because there are gay Muslims who are discriminated in mosques. They are unable to pray. People just don't like them. There are also controversies that regards a lot of Malays accepting all these taboo topics. People like Maria Chin can't do enough. It's because she can't tap into that market. Party socialists can't do enough. It's because they can't tap into that market. What we really need now is for Too Phat to ride on Joe Flizzow's fame to then enter and penetrate through the music industry. It's because this is the most important part where Joe Flizzow will be able to tackle the millennials, and then Malik will be able to attack the target group of the urban Malays and also the rural Malays in the music. I don't really know the group. But at least there's a demographic that Malik specifically caters to. I think his internal conflict will be very, very useful to then explain all these topics. It's why this is your valid point in life and why this is something maybe you should change or this is something that I should probably advocate for. So on their side, their claim was to also say that all this advocacy will be done better under cartel records. But as we said, it is very lucky for Ultimate and Sona One to be under the record labels of cartel. There are other upcoming artists that we haven't heard of and that even I don't really know. They are currently struggling to even pinch their value on money, fame, and make it into the music scene. And this is the reason why the obligation on them is not as heavy and as much as Too Phat, because they were the ones who spearheaded and they need to come back to spearhead the revolution again. Your understanding of privacy of Malik, I think it's very valid to then say. But it's also very useful for us to utilize him, and this is how my arguments will go. First point, why do newer artists need to then gain the recognition within the music industry first, only to then advocate for LGBT, and second, or controversial topics, and second, how will Malik be very useful to the scene, to Too Phat, and why Too Phat will eventually change things within Malaysia. First, why newer artists can't do it even if they're under cartel records. So they say Joe Flizzow can do it by himself and whatever. Sure, but you're already targeting the millennial market, which is already somewhat liberal, and most of the I think some people who study still are still very conservative in mindset. Hence, they wanted to then listen to Malik and what he has to say and his opinions and insights of taboo topics, right? So when newer artists can't tap into this conservative market, first, if they do want to talk about taboo topics in Malaysia, they will have to win and prioritize money and fame. This is because they need to then prioritize their own survivability in the music scene and also themselves and their image before they get slandered by Cosmo, before they get slandered by Utusan and things like that. They cannot then risk their whole career just based on advocating when someone else has already done it, was successful and disbanded just because they just wanted their own lives. But they need to understand that Malaysia needs them more than ever to be able to then fight for more LGBT policies now that our governments are more allowing of, are more forgiving towards freedom of speech. This is the reason why they need to come back and talk about different opinions and factions of discussion that will then increase when conservative Malays and we start fighting for actual issues within Malaysia, like women Putra rights and also for LGBT rights. This is a moment where it's crucial, where we will never get again in history, and hence Too Phat needs to come back and take the wheel. They will also, for new artists, they also face more backlash and not talk about these issues due to the market that they want to target, right? So if you want to target a larger market to get a larger amount of profit, they talk about very normal things like love, breakup, the culture and whatever. That's why they can never really then divulge their own album or like even a song into these issues, because for one thing, they get slandered everywhere. They're also liable to their record companies. They are not cartel and restrictions, and it's very lucky for Ultimate and Sona One to be in cartel. But other things and every other else, they won't be able to then produce sort of music because they are liable to these companies, and their opinion, most of all, won't be valuable because they have no image, they have no name, they have no fan base, and these are reasons why all these new projects can't do the same as Too Phat. And when they have to then, if they want their opinion to be valuable within the music scene, what they need is money, what they need is fame, what they need is following, what they need is online like discussions regarding them or whatsoever. And this will never happen if newer artists will do it, because their advocacy will just go to wash when everyone rebuts their good ideas. Second, why will Malik be useful? We say, as long as we don't really know about like how it was like for them to be standard or whatever, I think that even though they have jarring differences, the fact that if it's a hybrid album, it will be a lot better. So when it comes to the understanding of spirituality and how it plays a role within the taboo topics of discussion, I think it really highlights and enlightens Joe Flizzow regarding like how his approach to the millennials, or perhaps he wants to enlarge his target audience, will be very useful for Malik to come back and enlighten him about it. The reason why hybrid is good is not only because they can also reach his target audience, but Malik as a person and Too Phat, along with their cult following and people being interested in their lives, means that people are more likely to listen to them and understand what they say and take it seriously, right? On their side, if they wanted Joe Flizzow to do it alone, he'll already do just with millennials like us who already somewhat support LGBT people. And more so, I think the more conservative millennials won't really like obey Joe Flizzow anyway and just go with Subang Jaya sama ada gaya. But for that, yes.
So, considering the new Malik is a staunch Muslim, why do you assume his internal conflict will result in him advocating as opposed to affecting Joe Flizzow's advocation and making him more moderate?
I think it moderates it is because Joe Flizzow and him will come back together and talk about the different facets and discussions. And therefore, it's very useful for it, even if the advocacy, even if he doesn't really advocate for the taboo topics and might ruin Joe Flizzow's progress. The reason why it is still very useful is because Malik will literally capture the attention of this target audience, and this is what Joe Flizzow will never be able to do. Hence, these ideas will never cross the minds of this target audience at all, because Joe Flizzow will only be relevant in the millennials. Hence is the reason why we believe that Malik will be the breakthrough for the extension of the advocacy, and even if we want to defend a world where Joe Flizzow will be able to restrict perhaps a little bit of Malik's advocacy to be able to forward them. But the most important part is to just include Malik in all these discussions and to retain his ideology and values, to be able to then make an advocacy that will be able to then advocate for not only like the millennials, but also urban Malays to be able to be in support of these taboo topics. Thank you.
My turn to India. Joe, when you're ready.
I'll talk about two things. One, I'll talk specifically about the quality of music itself, independent of the value of advocacy, but also, since it's such a huge issue, I'll go delve deeper into what are the likely causes that even if Malik comes back, what are the possible outcomes that could happen in terms of advocacy. But before that, some rebuttals. Number one, Alex said, the personal conflict that Malik goes through makes him relatable to a lot of, say, conservative people out there. So the song Just a Little Bit came out long before the album Rebirth and Reality. And even then, there was a clear evidence of shift in terms of what Malik thought was acceptable, in terms of a shift of spirituality or moral compass, right? So it's very clear that he has turned away from the kind of LGBT advocacy that they set out in the beginning. So there was no evidence or no clear reason for us to believe that he would likely still stand for that cause, or if he even experienced any kind of relatable personal conflict, if he's really just a good Muslim. Now, secondly, they have a fan base to tap. All these so-called fans are fans of Too Phat. They're not fans of just Malik. So any kind of fan base or target market that you want to tap into, Joe Flizzow can do it alone because all these same people knows Joe Flizzow as well. In fact, he will do it a lot more effectively because he has been so active in the scene, because he has so many new songs, he has been engaging in a lot of local issues. So those things make him a lot more effective. But even beyond Joe Flizzow, Cartel is there. You have Ultimate, you have Sona One. Yes, sure, maybe they're more liked by the millennials, but that doesn't mean there's no value in their work of advocacy. There are a lot of still conservative millennials that they can advocate to. There's still very high value in the work that they can do in Cartel, independent of Malik. But even if, right, let's engage in the best case scenario that Malik does have an internal conflict, he has a fan base to tap, that still doesn't translate into an automatic duty for him to come out and put himself on the line when very clearly there's no clear indication that fighting for your causes is what he wants to do right now. And we'll say that advocacy will not be effective if you're not invested in it wholeheartedly. So let's talk about advocacy. Why, even if Malik somehow comes out to collaborate, what will be the likely outcome? I think Patrick talked to you very clearly about the irreconcilable moral differences. The previous album, very clearly, if they couldn't have worked together on Rebirth and Reality, in fact, the name itself should give you a very clear indication that there was no comeback, no repairing the cracks that happened between those two people. It shows that he has returned to spirituality, he's a reclusive, low profile, hiding away from the public eye. What possible causes would this Malik see common ground with Joe Flizzow? Even if, say, he comes back to do advocacy work, it's very likely uncontroversial issues. You know, it probably won't be issues like LGBT advocacy or freedom of religion, because this guy that sings about spirituality is not going to be like, let's go save the gays now, right? So, and even if he wants to talk about advocacy, it will likely be more morally uncontentious issues such as speaking up against corruption, speaking up against poverty, education. Sure, those are still valuable issues, but really quite low impact and low value. And Joe Flizzow has already been always advocating for those issues very well in all his songs, right? Everyone knows his line. We are quoting his line in our speeches. So if the objective is to revive advocacy of the kind of advocacy that you wanted to see in just a little bit, the kind of advocacy that was really pushing boundaries, it's very unlikely that Malik will be helpful in forwarding that cause. In fact, it will be much better, we argue, if Joe Flizzow does it alone, because one, he will have the full freedom to dictate the content of the album, full freedom to dictate the kind of song, the kind of marketing strategy that he wants to go to, which means he's much more able to push for those causes into controversial territories. Secondly, he'll be bolder to do it too, because he's the only one that has to take on the risk of assessing or talking about those issues. It probably will be very unfair to force Joe Flizzow to force his friend to do things that not only they're uncomfortable with, but also put their livelihoods or their reputation permanently on the line.
Sure. So when it comes to all these topics, I think Joe Flizzow really just can't tap into the market because he's only very relevant with the millennials. I think the Malik's insights will be very useful for advocacy for the other target audience. How will you then reclaim those audiences?
The whole time they were together in the same band. So if you know Too Phat, and if you know Too Phat enough to know Malik more than most of us in this room, you will definitely know Joe Flizzow. It's the same market. Second, so let's move into my next argument. How this compromises the quality of music itself and why that's very harmful, right? So beyond the irreconcilable moral differences, the creative vision of these two people are also effectively diverging. When your motive of creating music is so different, when Malik's purpose of creating music, say for example in the last album, was to talk about his personal relationship with God, and Joe Flizzow's vision was to talk about the grassroots issues that affect like people in Subang, for example. The kind of irreconcilable creative vision means it's unlikely that they will be able to collaborate in a productive way. When you look at people say groups like Beatles, for example. Everyone is very different in their kind of talent, different in their style of music, but when they work together, because at least the foundation of the creative vision was to head towards the same direction, they could still work together. Why is this bad when you put Malik and Joe Flizzow together? It affects of course, the songwriting, who they want to work with, what concerts they want to do, whether the dancers are dressed modestly or not. It compromises the ability for both of them to do independently what they really believe in, and in the end, it goes nowhere. Within status quo, Joe Flizzow is doing really well in terms of his cartel records. He's both critically and commercially acclaimed. He's 40+ years old, and when you're at that age and you have that much money and fame, you really don't want to be bogged down by another partner who's explicitly expressed different views from what they want to do. He already has enough social capital to do the advocacy work. He has the money to nurture and to groom even younger artists to also stand for those causes. It's bad if you push them to work together and compromise the quality of music, because it's bad for the legacy of the currently pristine Too Phat image. At least we still feel the nostalgia for that team. It would be bad for Joe Flizzow's personal record as well if he, pushes out an album that's not really up to par. We think this shouldn't happen.
Right, my thanks to Deputy Leader of Opposition, Galway, when you're ready.
There are two issues in this debate. How do we have a discussion of taboo topics in Malaysia better? Secondly, how do Malaysian artists will be able, how does the Malaysian music industry will be better off understand and well known and recognized in the international music industry? First thing I want to do is to deal with this speaker before. So the most relevant thing that I get from them is that Malik is now good. It's a good Muslim. Joey can do it alone. Even if there's a conflict, there's not an automatic obligation. The first thing I want to say is that this explains that Joey can do it alone, but didn't explain what is the harm of Malik joining itself. Because what we told you about the age group in Alex's speech that Deborah didn't touch at all in her speech, which is to say that the Malik itself has a different target audience. The reason why Joey itself is well known in the current millennials, because he only target the millennials, not the older people. Malik itself has a different view to attract people who are in different group age, and that's the reason we'll be able to open much bigger target audience in that sense, right? Secondly, so according to that also is that even if there's conflict, there's not an automatic obligation. But I'm going to explain to you why there's internal conflict or translate to an obligation. Because it is a fight within yourself on what you should do and what you shouldn't do in the particular sense at the same time. This means that there's a feeling of obligation on what you should do because you were from that particular community before, and you have an incentive to be able to promote all of those music that is important for them. Right? Secondly, so according to that also, she said that corruption and etc. value is already well done by Joe. That's why if Malik itself enter, there's a ability for dictatorship on what kind of music that they're going to do. This is not true at all. I study music industry in my degree, right? How does it do? How does it look like actually? The music industry has contract on how not to dictate, and it will be an exploitation, and there's also a limitation on what is freedom on your expression. If that's the truth, if that whatever things that Deborah say is not true and just speculation on her speech. Plus, secondly, so why is it also not true? Right? The reason why it is untrue that Joey is not known is because all these don't necessarily know him because they only target the current millennials itself. Lastly, so according to that also, there's a harm of not working together. I think I think we've already explained to you that Malik has different view and he will demand to open the target market. There's also an integrated advocacy, and that's the important part from Alex's speech that they missed on side opposition. We tell you that people still look up to them in status quo because there's no exposure of the current controversial issues. The existence of Too Phat itself is Too Phat itself is being able to expose you to a more controversial issue that is more relatable. That's one much benefit that is more important. Second part. Okay, so according to side opposition, there are three things. First, Malik will harm the cause. Secondly, they have different motivation. And thirdly, cartel is just good enough. Okay, so the first thing is the info side didn't specify on why Malik don't like him or don't like Joey, right? Joe, right? But there's the capability for him to attract people. So regardless whether or not he likes him or not, I think the debate suggests that there's an ability for them to attract people in general. The attraction of those people that can reach more of the millennials, but also the golden generation that doesn't necessarily come from millennials. The side opposition have been trying to push. What we are different from side government is exclusive is that we have different age group, and that's one important thing that they didn't want to deal with in their speech. Secondly, about this, they have different motivations. It is true. I do believe that they do have different motivation, but the difference here is that the different motivation doesn't translate to different value to begin with. If they started together as two people at the top duo itself, it is already explained they have similar value that they want to purchase, that they want to share to the society, and that's one reason why they have still a similar value in terms of like fighting for homosexuality, for example, and still being able to fight for all of these things. Side opposition can't just say that Malik Joe has been doing so well in status quo, and then suddenly having Malik being able to opt into the music industry suddenly destroy all of the cartel record itself. This doesn't make sense at all. Before that, yes.
So if Joe Flizzow is not relevant to the old people because he's only been targeting millennials recently, Malik has been sitting at home targeting no one. How does that give him a level?
No. People look up to Malik previously, correct? But now he opt out from the music industry. God knows why. Okay, but the point here is that people still asking where the hell he has been going into. If he suddenly opt into the music industry and suddenly, oh my God, Malik currently come back, and there's an ability for him to have discussion on why is the importance, on why does he opting into this particular music industry. He opting itself is already a benefit. The reason why to this because people do still listen to his music in the past from the Too Phat itself, right? All of this already explained there is a music that's pretty old and people still listen. And if he himself being able to appear in the society, that's already one benefit to be able to get exposure. I'm going to rebuild my case that side opposition didn't do really well, right? There are three things. We tell you number one, Joe's power in the Malaysian music industry is able to expose you to the international music industry. Secondly, current new artists and cartel has no power, and this is one thing that side opposition also didn't deal with. And the third part is about the political power and political and social power inside government that also side opposition didn't deal with. What do we tell you in the first argument? We tell you that Joe owned the cartel record that's known by local Malaysia and connects Malaysia with the Los Angeles music scene. This means that there's already a platform for you to be able to expose the musical industry of Malaysia. And if Malik itself opting into this particular music industry, there's an exposure of not only millennials in Malaysia, but also millennials in Los Angeles, for example, but also the golden generation of the Los Angeles itself, because Malik itself has the different group target. That's very important, right? But the second part, we've already proven to you that they have power and influence to attract the attraction itself. From owning the cartel record can help the funding of and marketing and advertising, and that he is still relevant in the music industry. That's why you should still look up to him. The second part is what we tell you is that current new artist in cartel has no power, and this is what side opposition has been pushing for. So what opposition has been saying is that cartel record has been now been relevant and just been doing well. It will be better because it doesn't touch on the controversial issue because they have no power in the particular sense, because they have no fame. Alex and Rakkshanaa have already explained to you why fame itself is the reason why people get traction, and side opposition deny this on their speech. Two last things. The first one is why Malik is more relevant for those age groups which are more conservative. This means that will maybe have some benefit, the same benefit in terms of being able to target the millennials, but it's not mutually exclusive. The exclusive benefit of that government is that you'll be able to have bigger target group. The last part is about Mariaching, which is to say that currently Malaysia has been continuously being able to progress, and and being able to fight, for example, for LGBT community, for example, in Maria Chin as a political power on side government, right? This is one thing that South Asian didn't say. So what we are trying to prove is that the existence of Malik itself, who is golden generation, and Malik and Joe itself being able to expose the music industry about this particular issue can help the political progress of Maria Chin being able to pass the progress of the LGBT community. I think from that reason, we already win this debate.
Thank you, Kuppz. I'll invite opposition.
I only have one issue in this debate, that to summarize this debate. Does Flizzow need Malik to be Too Phat? But before I go on to that issue, I have three things I want to highlight that are non-contentious and non-issues in this debate. The first thing is this whole hurrah about we need to normalize LGBT issues because gay people are dying in Malaysia and it's very much important, which is entirely the 5-minute speech of what Prime Minister talked about. Because it's not contentious, because we are also very much for advocacy of these rights. It's just the manner in which we approach it, right? The second thing that's also not contentious is the argument that also came up from Prime Minister, which is that other artists need inspiration, which is why you need Too Phat to come back and ensure that these things can be done and people can accept it. This is also non-contentious because we're very much fine with Joe Flizzow, who already has the interest with regards to this particular subject matter and these recent issues, which is he also did during Too Phat to continue this as well. So we think he can be an inspiration towards this artist, non-contentious. Third, the new artists are unable to do it because they're not as famous, and which is why the cartel records should do it because they're a lot more established, they've got international market, and etc. This is also not contentious. It came up from the second speaker because I think Patrick very made it clear. Like Joe Flizzow and Cartel is already in a very strategic position as of now, considering that Joe Flizzow owns Cartel and he also has the interest. He can already push for it. I think this is not contentious. Sit down. So these three things are not exclusive benefits as much as they try to talk about it that exists under the other side. Let's just go on to the exclusivity within this debate. Does Joe Flizzow really need Malik for him to move on and recreate this group that's called Too Phat, right? I think the reasons for the dispute and the reason for disbandment was something that's very much important. They came out as early as leader of opposition. The only contest to this came out in government whip and they said, well, we don't really know what happened because the info slide didn't really mention. It's called an info slide and not a case slide for a particular reason, right? Because I think the reason as to their disbandment is something that's very much relevant to how is it that they will come about, right? The differences between these two individuals in personalities was vast, right? Your Joe Flizzow is very much for recent issues, things like global and international market able to cater to be as liberal as possible. And then you had Malik, there's the complete polar end. Someone is extremely spiritual and extremely conservative, right? And the best example to be given is their final albums, the Rebirth album Patrick talked about, where they have two different CDs that shows that there's absolutely differences that cannot be reconciled, which is why they had to take two separate CDs as opposed to one CD that they can bring about, right? The premise for the entirety of government is to show as to why is it that Malik would want to come back, considering that he was out of the scene for so long. He doesn't need the money. If he needed it, he would have sang his Nasheed band at some point in time, right? And you can't argue obligation per se. You're not telling me things like why is it he didn't feel the obligation when he was Too Phat to not be in line with Flizzow? Why is it now when he comes out 10 years in the asylum, suddenly he feels this form of obligation? Like, twist it out. At best, we tell you Patrick's argument that he would pressure him to be in line towards Flizzow's stances, and he will further make him worse in terms of how he produces music. That argument was an important harm that Patrick talked about that was not engaged by their side. But at best, perhaps they get the benefit of doubt. They can fiat and say that Malik will definitely join in. You can fiat that, but what you definitely can't fiat is how is it that they'll be able to perform in this new band. They assume that the Too Phat that they're going to create now is going to be the exact same Too Phat from 15 years ago, right? And that is something they never once managed to prove, right? Because of their argument is that of these conservative groups, old age groups, something we can pandit to, because they accuse of our team of not engaging is something that's absolutely false. Because I think Patrick already preempted this from the very beginning and also in Deborah's speech, right? Because they're also in the POI when they asked. The internal conflict that Patrick talked about as to how is it he's unable to reconcile and he's also conservative and also more staunch than he ever was before, how will he be able to deal with the more liberal songs, right?
Because we will posit to you that as much as they assert he will, like this internal conflict would mean that he will go in line with liberal values, and when we said he will go with conservative values, at this point perhaps as a deadlock. But trend shows at that point when he was in Too Phat, they was unwilling to compromise principles with Joe Flizzow. Is a precedent that's very much important. As of now, especially right now, 10 years later, when he's been sitting in a mosque and been doing all this religious and spiritual things, he's a lot more conservative at this point in time. Why would he at this point in time be able to reconcile and sing these more LGBT friendly things, right? Because at best, we would tell you that if Malik were to join, he would do a separate CD once again, right? Or he would tell Flizzow and everyone in cartel that, oh, this is not something I can go for because I do not believe in this, right? Really, when it comes to instances as such, like the harm that you accrue is that at best case scenario, if you do create the same CD, you must concede the trade-off that your message to advocacy won't be as liberal, won't be as push up, won't be as in your face. It will be a lot moderate compared to what it could have been with Flizzow in of itself. That's the impact Malik would have. Because all these years, we can cater to the conservative group. Let's say 10 years later, the Malik that is today, right? The moment this conservative group that haven't heard Malik at all, but know the 10 years ago Malik, come and listen to this album once again. Why would they accept this Malik knowing that he's not the same Malik that's found before, right? Because for him to still pander to the same audience, he must also be conservative, right? If not, he'll be seen as someone who's pandering to Joe Flizzow, pandering to liberal ideas. He'll be someone who's seen as a sellout, right? And we don't think you can ever tap the conservative market. But what is the trade-off? The trade-off is you'll definitely lose the millennial market that they said we already have. Why? The millennials will see that this is a person who's considering joining the Too Phat and say a diluted message of advocacy towards whatever liberal rights that you will be able to push for, right? So they push and say that the liberals are something that is out of debate. It is not. You lose the liberal market that you talked about, and the conservative you also talked about will never be really, will never be able to reconcile with Malik considering that the sellout region that is going for, right? Yeah, before I proceed, go.
So like, we didn't ever say that we will defend Too Phat, but even if then, why would Malik then suddenly lose his target audience just because he suddenly pandered?
Why would he lose his target audience because he pandered? He will lose it because he pandered, right? If you're telling me that the old Malik had his fan base because he was very much conservative, if he were to join now and no longer hold on to conservatism, then how can you then say he will still have that same fan base, right? It absolutely makes no sense. Especially that they say that the fan base is split. Some people like Flizzow, some people like Malik, and it's not that people love Too Phat enough to time. When Deborah said, if you love Too Phat, you can also appreciate Joe Flizzow, they said, no, they're separate entities. Then at this point, you must also take that trade off. Then you will lose this conservative group because the Malik is not the same Malik as you talked about, right? I think, what a very cop-out sound from their side, right? But the second level to this is the whole reputation and legacy part of it, right? I think we made it very clear. Like, after Too Phat dies, Joe Flizzow is, people will look at Joe Flizzow, but who is this person? They will know he came from the bank. Same way Fergie left Black Eyed Peas, people still know Fergie was Beyonce and Destiny's Child, etc. But the harm is that when you recreate this legacy, but you're unable to create the same message, or that Malik's a lot more conservative now as compared to before, is you lose whatever, like backtrack whatever progress you would have made from the old albums, and people won't be able to look at the old albums as good also. Because the comparative of Flizzow doing it himself in this cartel with his new hip-hop artist that's a lot more liberal, will be able to push their message, if that's what you want, a lot more in your face and a lot more effective, right? Panel, in the conclusion of this debate, you will just say one thing. Adding Malik to Too Phat will only make Too Phat havoc.
Right. Opposition reply?
Sure. I know hip-hop has always been characterized as chaotic, but this debate is actually quite easy to judge. To that extent, I helped the panel out by giving 3 issues on why opposition has conclusively won. The first question is, who actually is Too Phat? Because we are not saying that government wants, for example, Too Phat to be the ones from last time. We're just saying that a lot of their benefits are contingent on the old Too Phat being here again. Meaning to say that they have the same, for example, consistency in their advocacy, they are the same, for example, provocative nature that's able to push for these LGBT stances that they are talking about. To that extent, are there any analysis from opposition to tell you why that was not likely to be the case? They are. We've told you that necessarily because of the hiatus that has already taken place, that there is a high tendency that Malik, who unfortunately because of the fact he's not been singing, so we really can't gauge what his stance was, but he engaged based on 2 things. Number one, his last appearance on the album, and he's already made it very clear that he's a born-again Muslim. But secondly, his refusal to participate in any showbiz means that he already considered that he wants to live a personal and reclusive life. Understanding this context, it means that there's a high likelihood that it won't be the same Too Phat that has the same capacity in order to push forward the messages that you want on your side. So we think that understanding there are different motivations at play with these two individuals, the message that you wanted, although noble, won't be the same one as last time if they decided to come back. But also notice that the entire case of government is contingent on Malik saying yes. We say that they can fiat, for example, him coming back, or for example, there's an obligation that he should come back, but he can never truly prove me that he'll be able to come back in the capacity that he had back then. But lastly, let's talk about legacy for a moment, because this was something that was introduced like late in my speech, a lot in Deborah's speech that was never answered. The idea that this individual, this group right now, up until like 10 years later, we're still discussing the music, means that there's a sort of legacy that's attached to that. You coming back and being this different Too Phat from back then means that number one, you attract criticism towards your music that derails you from any form of appreciation of the messages back then. This is what you see, for example, when Ayah was dead, people still appreciated her music up until now. When Too Phat dies, people still appreciated his music until now. Meaning to say that if something dies well, don't resurrect that thing. Just die. Don't come back. Because if you come back, you ruin everything, right? You're not Jesus. Secondly, let's talk about the message that you want to send. Because unfortunately, we can see that even if the best case that Malik will come back, how will the message look like? And they say that it will be very forward-thinking, it will be very provocative, and we take them at their best. That is, for example, pandering to the conservative artists. How would that look like and play out? It means that two things. Number one is either, for example, there will be some form of pandering in the sense that there's a moderation of the messages that you want to send out. But two, there will be inconsistency in the stances that you want to send. So you have, for example, Joe Flizzow saying that we love the gays. You have, for example, Malik saying don't stone the gays. So the messages are very convoluted and inconsistent to the point that people ask, what do you want? So people are unable necessarily to appreciate, and it won't be the same traction because all those forms of criticism will go towards the jarring differences between these two messages. We think ultimately the message is wrong. But how would the message look like if Joe Flizzow does it himself? We say that this is an individual with a lot of safety net that's put into place with machineries, either with cartel records or his own personal endeavors, which means that it's more likely that he's able to, number one, keep the narrative stronger of what he wants to push for, but secondly, have less dependency on the individual that is not even certain is his friend anymore. So really, in that stance, the message will be much clearer and better on our side. But thirdly, what will they reach out to? This is perhaps like what government's strongest material was in, about conservatives and why you need to target them. Let's differentiate that into two things. Number one, conservatives now and conservatives back then. The latter of conservatives back then, we think that Joe Flizzow, because of the fact that he's able to successfully maintain his hip-hop empire, shows to you that there's a certain form of traction that's still gaining among this. Let's talk about the conservatives that otherwise, for example, they want to target. These are individuals now that will be unable to reconcile the differences that Malik has shown, for example, in his personal stances and what he has. The most that will happen is they will label him as a cop-out and they'll label him as anti-Muslims. We think that if at best the case is telling you why cartel records should do something because of the monopoly, and we agree. We think that they are able to necessarily feel a stronger message and send forward a better narrative if they're able to successfully reclaim the narrative for their own. We really like Malik, but we don't think and we don't know what Malik will say, and we'd rather have Joe Flizzow only. Proud to oppose.
Alright. Thanks to Patrick for the speech. Now to end the debate. Dr. Plant? Yes.
The reason why Joe Flizzow really just can't do it by himself is honestly because, like, I think we've characterized time and time again that, his target group is really just independent. And as much as he might be a 40-year-old and he might have some traction with, like, some Malays and some urban Malays most of the time, I think Malik will have a very special connection, or at least an insight as to how conservative Malays think.
Yeah.
And I think it's very useful to send a message, don't stone the gays, instead of fighting for gay marriage. Because they've never actually proven how Joe Flizzow's in-your-face advocacy will actually work, and how policies will be passed when it's a prime time that we're actually gonna be able to then discuss about these topics and to actually discuss about Malaysian issues. And I think the music industry right now just really lacks a lot
of this kind of insight that will then be useful of moderate advocacy that will be very helpful to then get the target audience that these people can reach. So the reason why, and first issue, is that how advocacy look like. We'll bite the bullet and say, and we've written all the time, is that Malik might have to pander to what Joe Flizzow wants. So for example, if Joe Flizzow wants gay issues to be more established and to be more welcome, Malik wouldn't have to do that. The question is now, why does genuine Malik have to enter into like the old Too Phat? Because we never really did the old Too Phat. So when a new Malik comes in, or at least like some version of a new one, I think what Malik will be able to then provide to Too Phat will then be his insights of how he was spiritual, and Joe Flizzow will be able to edit the songs or whatever. And this is why we say, like, as much as quality might go down, it's just more of like getting the insight and to moderate the advocacy that's most useful as a political tool for us to be able to spearhead, because no Malay will listen to Ultimate, no Malay will listen to Sona One and think that they're actually serious. Like, the reason why Joe Flizzow sometimes is not even taken seriously is because like he just seems as someone who just says things and thinks he's smart. But the reason why I think Malik would be a good combination and Too Phat will be great is because due to their influence and their prior legacy, that people do look up to them, people take their words seriously. No other artist can do this, and give you a tons of reasons why. They need to tell us why Joe Flizzow and Cartel Records just can be successful because it's in your face and suddenly everything will go right. Second, why Malik needs to come back at the cost of his privacy or at the cost of whatever he does. The reason why we say that the genuine Malik doesn't have to appear. They're like, true, maybe what may not say like he'll be seen as a sellout because he pandered to Joe Flizzow or whatever. But that's the reason why we feel like Malik will be still a very useful tool. The reason why he's still very contentious with that audience is because they understand where he came from, how he grew up. And when he comes back, it's then a lot easier to see the progress, right? So if people did enjoy the two different CDs that they had, why can't they enjoy what Malik produces now? And even if Malik is not genuine, the question we ask is, why must the genuine Malik come back? And why can't Malik just pretend like he advocates for all these kind of things? Even though his internal conflicts might come back, we feel like it is then a lot more useful for Malik. And the reason why we say that Too Phat has an obligation to take it is because they're the only ones in Malaysia who can probably do it, right? The reason why they have a lot of this influence, a lot of these legacies, a lot of people look up to them, a lot of people know them, is because of all these issues, and therefore they just stick back to that principle. Advocacy doesn't have to have like the same results, but advocacy at least will garner the same principles for that. Malik then owes Malaysia because we have fought for a new government and circumstances have changed. That all these new people just can't target the audience and the voters to then vote for more policies and more change towards the LGBT community or more taboo topics. So this means that when the advocate, when the time is most useful, he will need Joe Flizzow to do that. And also, Joe can't tap into these markets. And this, therefore, would then be Malik's form of reconciling what he did and to just produce music that people will be able to then vote for, to be able to then be more friendly and be open towards all these controversial topics. On their side, they'll never be able to get that. Because all they wanted to fight for was in-your-face advocacy that we just don't know how things will change. And all they did was run a negative case on why Malik will just be useless. We don't think Malik is useless. And we don't think that Malik should then sacrifice all his privacy just because he enjoys it and wants to reconcile with himself. But he has to understand that he has bigger obligations further than any other person can ever imagine, and that his power is most useful when Too Phat will be reenacted. Thank you.
Thanks to the debaters of law. You can cross the floor, shake hands, rap battle if you want to. Leave the room. The results will be announced in the hall. Bring your stuff. Lunch provided. Okay, bye.
Guna ballot kertas ni. Power sial.
Wait, you guys have this. Wait. Where's Zana? Live stream still on, guys. Oh. Hey, guys, remember.
You know what? I'll copyright my hand. Let's all write. Oh, no, listen to that. Doing it right. initiatives.
Okay, what is the next one?